Greetings, dear friends. Today, in the АЛЛАТРА TV studio, we have the esteemed Igor Mikhailovich Danilov.
Greetings.
And Жанна.
Greetings.
From ancient times and up to this day, progressive people have been thinking and designing what our future would be like. And they hoped that not only the environment would change, but also the social structure of society, and most importantly, a human himself. So, Igor Mikhailovich, in the previous video, you shared information and talked about the levels of civilization development, about the prospects for all of humanity, and this information was of great interest to our participants. They were very inspired by what they heard and sent a lot of grateful feedback. We have also received many questions and requests to talk about human life in the creative society, in different spheres of existence, about those amazing and tremendous opportunities which open up for every person when building the creative society. And we would very much like to hear all these facts which would give us, people, free thinking and would neutralize those patterns in consciousness that got formed due to the consumerist format of society. Because as people say, if you don't think about the future, if you don't do anything now for its implementation, it won't come, it won't take place. We people in every here and now shape this future of ours. So in the video Creative Society, the prospect of civilization, you said that when humanity enters the first stage of development, the first level of civilization development, and even between the first and the second level, a person can manage the micro-world, that everything in this world consists of
Elementary particles.
combinations of elementary particles, yes. And knowing how they function, we can control them. So we would very much like to talk about this in more detail, how our society will change and how this will affect people's lives in practical terms.
We can talk a lot, friends, but it is better to see this. Just to go ahead, build it and see, and then try to live there yourselves. But we can talk, of course, if there is a desire.
If we talk about managing the micro-world, then how would this probably look in human life in practical terms?
Let's start with something basic and simple. Say with our modern physics of elementary particles. As of today, as it is commonly believed already, it has been theoretically substantiated and experimentally proved a bit. The modern understanding of physics has come to the conclusion that this entire world around us, including you and me, light, well, anything and everything, your tablets, this table, our camera people, cameras, and the rest of the galaxy, consists of 6 quarks, 6 leptons, and 5 quanta, the carriers of the fundamental forces of nature, and that's all. What is currently known, so to speak. Although some people suspect that the world is much more complex. Let's even stop at this point. And by manipulating these quarks and leptons, using these quanta force carriers, it is possible to create and combine any atoms. As soon as atoms are formed and start interacting with each other, the process of not only physics but also chemistry begins. That is, matter begins to live. So, whatever we take, no matter how we decompose it, everything consists of the same thing. Is it simple?
Great. Yes, it's very simple.
Very simple and clear. And now, let's approach such an understanding that the first level of civilization development, or the first stage, precisely gives opportunities of acquiring additional energy. And everything boils down to what? Is the presence of energy and understanding of the arrangement, meaning information. If we are able to manipulate information, and if we have enough energy, we will be capable of everything. The first stage exactly gives these opportunities. Of course, they say that science is not developed yet. Guys, science is developed, and it is developed very well. The fact that there is a little misunderstanding of some things, speaking delicately, for the most part, these modern understandings in physics exist. Just because for someone these theories are convenient, well, for others, they're inconvenient. Some people, let's say, like it more when everything we have is more fundamentally grounded, Although out of all these principles formed as of today, this is, well, how to put it mildly so as not to offend anyone. Let's say people thought something up, pulled something to something else, something is grounded smoothly, they adopted it, and just live with this understanding. However, it's enough to slightly change the conditions and everything changes, and all consistent models collapse. For instance, quite recently it was believed that an atom is an indivisible particle. Later on they understood that it consists of quarks. Okay, I won't lecture on physics. Some people discovered certain quarks, then added other quarks, and so on. Whoever wants to will find there are plenty of such things, and this is told in physics. So the deeper we go, the more interesting things of all sorts we find. Now many physicists understand that a quark cannot be an indivisible particle because it consists of something, and it is certainly not the smallest object. Behind it there are also particles, but those particles, this is already a transformation into energy. Energy transforms into a wave. That wave consists, again, of particles which are indivisible. We are moving to a slightly different physics. It is not recognized scientifically, so we won't philosophize. This is merely like a hypothesis. Nevertheless, if we learn to manipulate at least these 6 quarks, 6 leptons and these 5 quanta, we will be capable of anything. Although, to be honest, everything that we now see and through what you see us and on what you see us actually consists of 2 quarks and 1 lepton, while everything else is already manifested under certain conditions and somehow in CERN. When particles collide, new particles appear. They need to be called in some way. Why? Because they behave somehow, in fact. Thank God they deduced what they deduced. It doesn't matter. It's important that this opens up tremendous opportunities. And do you know what is interesting? Perhaps I'll begin with a little bit of history. About 30 years ago, transplantology was developing. It was sort of people's great hope to prolong life, to save human lives. And it was quite interesting. So in a conversation with my colleagues, I told them a little time would pass and we would be able to simply assemble organs from cells, from clusters of cells, from cells, and implant that as a transplant and replace sick organs. That is, we take healthy cells from a sick organ, form what we need outside the body, just like there were children's construction sets. I gave an example of how we assemble it all, like in a construction set.
Lego, yes.
And implant it into the body. There is no rejection because it is something native and close. They were looking at me like, not like a futurologist. We also had a discussion with doctors. They expressed their assumption that I should read less science fiction books. Now they prosper, some of them occupy respectable positions in healthcare and in society. Hello, friends. So who was right? Modern 3D printers already make it possible to assemble. Of course, all this is not perfect so far. It has yet to be worked on, but nevertheless, certain organs are already replaced. An ear has been made and replaced, fragments of bones and soft tissues. Yes, they still encounter a lot of problems as of today. Nonetheless, is the issue being solved? It is being solved. Do such things already exist? They exist, don't they? There you go. As far as I understood, we have a sort of continuation of futurology.
Yes.
Science fiction, and we can talk freely, dream, and fantasize. Let our imagination run free, so to say, right? Okay, thank you, let's continue. Regarding technical opportunities that people will be able to possess, let me speak in a simple way. Let's imagine a human body. Nowadays, there is MRI. It can scan. However, it can scan the response at a molecular level, let's say. Not quite at the molecular level, but in any case, an organ and the like is visible. Although they say, doesn't matter. It provides correct diagnostic data, so to say. And this is already wonderful. Now let's imagine a slightly different level of human body scanning. When we see the arrangement of atoms, where they are supposed to be, and what kind of atoms, and what they consist of. After all, atomic nuclei are also different, which exactly makes an atom different. Both nuclei are different, and again, the set of electrons is different. This already changes the physics of an atom itself. Naturally, when assembling from these atoms, we obtain different molecules, right? And from these molecules, we assemble what? Body cells, and already larger, let's say, organs. So, even if already at this level, we will see what kind of atoms are in our molecules in one or another organ, and where they are arranged in space. And here, what is extremely important is their spatial arrangement, their interconnections, what quanta are used during their interaction, and so on. That is, we will be able to replicate it all. I'm simplifying. Let us not go into details, but tell it in a simple way. For instance, a machine similar to an MRI scanner.
Okay.
Many people already know what it is. A person lies down in a special machine. The machine scans him and shows what is where. The same is here. A person lies down or stands, it doesn't matter. A machine scans his body and shows already at the physical level of microparticles what is located where. And we see which pathology is where. And we understand what should be corrected. And this is changed and corrected, let's say, at a working engine. If we draw an analogy with a car, imagine car repairs during the operation of the engine itself.
Wow.
And this is not science fiction. Why? Well, now we are talking about healthcare. Yet what's the difference? In the same way, it is possible to repair a car engine as well. Moreover, if we take the present-day situation, we first have to make an organ in a 3D printer, let's say, to analyze. Then we
Implant it.
Of course, it is in a special medium there and everything else. Then it is implanted. It is clear that if an implant is made of native cells, it will heal much faster. While here imagine, a person is in an active state, he's alive, he feels everything. It is not even necessary to put him under anesthesia. Why? Because nervous impulses can easily be blocked and a person won't feel any discomfort, neither pain or anything else. But it is very important, and this is precisely the difference between the modern and the future. When an organ works, we see its function, and we restore everything immediately. That is, unnecessary cells are reformatted. Those particles which are in the wrong place or poorly function are removed, and necessary ones are inserted. Thus, the organ itself begins to be formed of the tiniest microparticles. This can take milliseconds of time. Not even seconds, but milliseconds, meaning restoration and repair. I mean, this is almost instantaneous. Yet, many people will come up with a question how something is removed and the like. Guys, this is elementary. Just for you to understand, right now, within 1 second, about 100 billion neutrinos are flying from the sun through my body. Just like through yours, these are just neutrinos. And this doesn't create any discomfort for us. Do you imagine the number of 100 billion? If you convert it into dollars, you should agree this will be noticeable, right? As for neutrinos, we don't see and don't hear them at all, and we don't feel that, it's every second. Therefore, particles can easily be removed and restored in their place. Isn't that interesting?
Great. Instantaneous correction of this matrix onto structures.
Absolutely right. Yet what is also interesting, this actually allows not only to restore the function of one or another organ, this makes it possible to correct the human body in general. And here, so to say, I will give my futurological forecast that much more time will be spent not on treating a pathology, but exactly on correcting the body, meaning that very plastic surgery. After all, in our society, everyone is dissatisfied with their body, so they will create new bodies and play with that. This is really so. This will take much more time than treatment of various diseases. Why? Because if a body is restored, according to, again, that very DNA program, the program of our body is embedded in each of us. It may be corrected, no problem. Clearly, now at the genetic level, later on, all this will be much easier. If we introduce some changes into That very program, we can stabilize it, and for quite a long time it can be precisely in this state. We cannot remove the laws of physics anywhere. Everything that works wears out. But all this is possible to, well, speaking the technical language, if we take a car engine, yes, there is such a notion as revitalization, meaning restoration. Then here is revivification, that is restoration, the reverse return of life. And it is possible to retain everything at any level, at any age, and basically for a very, very long time. Eventually, this should come to the point when everyone should have such a machine at home. I mean, people should not be ill. A person can undergo correction once a week or once a month, if he is active. I emphasize, if a person has an active physical load associated with stressful situations or something else. Why? Because this causes, again, a release of free radicals, as it is said nowadays. Generally speaking, this causes wear and damage to our organism. But in order for correction to take place, in order for this not to cause a chain reaction that destroys our body, all this can be corrected. And the person can feel wonderful for as long as he wants, so to say. Again, this doesn't give immortality. This is merely a prolongation of human life and, again, for a certain term. But in any case, a person can live as long as his body should actually live. This is quite long. And he can live productively and happily. And this is absolutely not science fiction.
Based on the previous video, we already understand for what purposes this lifespan is prolonged. It's already for going beyond...
Well, again, bodies can also be modified. They can be made more enduring, depending on goals and tasks, and on what a person lives by. If we take ordinary human life, let's say, on our planet and the like, even to support our body in a healthy state, is already wonderful, meaning we can engage in favorite activities and everything else. If we take, for instance, well, we are actually having a continuation of the previous conversation, so again, pardon me, I'll repeat myself. For you to understand why we are fantasizing, such a day of science fiction obviously continues. So in this regard, exploration of new planets. Of course, this should be done by people who are inclined to risk, who undertake fulfillment of complex tasks. For the sake of the future of the entire humanity, it's like military servicemen nowadays and the like. So, anyway, there are people who, let's say, risk is what they enjoy being involved in. They like it. Therefore, there will be plenty of work for such people as well. But, again, these are trained people, and first of all, these are people in the creative society. And what is the first foundation of the creative society?
Life, the value of human life.
The value of human life. Therefore, humanity cannot risk the lives, even of its own soldiers, for nothing, those who go on a scouting mission and the like. We will be obliged to create conditions for their safety. So let's fantasize a little more. Everyone knows what a tardigrade is. Those who don't know will look it up. It is such a small animal that survives in space, and excuse me, both at the lowest and highest temperatures possible. It can survive for a very long time without water, and so on, meaning it is probably one of the most enduring species. Let's take, what, a salamander, which is capable of regenerating many of its organs. So possessing these technologies, what is difficult about adding similar changes to a human body at the genetic level, even at the DNA level?
To borrow these functions from them, right?
At the same time, greatly increasing physical strength and resilience of our body to the external environment, meaning increasing its endurance, or survivability, its regeneration, and everything else. There's nothing difficult.
Great.
Right?
Yes, the process.
Then our pioneers who go to the forefront in exploring other planets, take risks and the like, will be much less vulnerable. And these are not fairy tales, these are not fantasies. No, these are fantasies, but we have such a day after all. What we mean is that it is quite possible if we are capable of changing something at such a level, right? Or to put it simply, it is manipulation with matter. It is such a controlling... Well, I'd like to tell you right away, so as to avoid confusion. We told you about the Anunnaki who are at the 6th stage of their civilization development, so you shouldn't confuse it with that. In our case, it's a pinpoint manipulation in a strictly defined point in space with certain targets, whereas that one is something much greater.
In the previous video, you also said an interesting thing about making hamburgers out of a ring.
Of course it's easy. Very easy. It's just the density of the material. Again, if we go back to those very quarks and the lepton, just imagine what density is here and what density is there. And at this point a paradox arises. Today they are trying to explain this paradox by the Higgs quantum. That is the Higgs boson, which gives mass and so on. Why? I'll just explain. The very density of the material comprises a certain number of atoms which are arranged in a certain interconnection of a greater density. The same particles are arranged more densely, but still there are huge distances between them, but still more densely, much more densely than in a hamburger. If we take the same number of particles, they are arranged in a slightly different configuration. The material is less dense but more voluminous. However, its mass increases. Mass increases not because the volume increases, but due to the program embedded in it. However, this very program or information of interaction between particles and already macro objects is interpreted today as the Higgs boson, meaning a particle that gives mass, imparts mass, and so on. Anyway, let's speak the language of physics now. If your ring contains fewer Higgs bosons, then a hamburger contains many more of them. That's the only difference. However, you have a lot more particles in your ring than in a dozen hamburgers, for example, you see? That's why it's possible to make a lot of good things out of a brick.
It is different from the way they produce meat at the cellular level today,
On 3D printers.
on 3D printers.
Well, these are our first steps. This is already done artificially. Food products, including meat products, are created. It's already possible to print food on 3D printers. Isn't that great? It is great. So far, we manipulate huge stones, bricks, from which houses are created or built, correct? Yet imagine if we manipulate the sand and the glue that binds together these sand grains of which the stone itself is created, we can actually make anything, right? And much faster, by the way.
What will it look like? Is it going to be some kind of a machine?
Absolutely, of course. It's a technical solution. Let's compare all this to a microwave oven. Everyone understands and knows what a microwave oven is. Let's imagine a certain machine that has certain programs and a special chamber. The chamber is a must here. Why? Because all this is created in certain conditions. Therefore, we can create an object precisely fitting into the chamber. The bigger chamber we have, the bigger objects we can create. Let's say we need conditions to instantly build a house. Since at the first stage, I don't see such conditions and creation of such chambers, we will have to build a house manually, even though we will understand what information is and will be able to manipulate elementary particles by embedding information. Our capabilities will be limited because we will still possess weak energy, meaning not quite pure one and not quite in necessary amounts.
Large-sized objects.
But materials can be created easily, of any kind.
So you've said that initially it looks a bit like a 3D printer. And in what way?
Not like a 3D printer.
Not a 3D
A
printer.
microwave, I said.
Sorry, a microwave.
Yes, a microwave oven. In what way? Again, let's imagine cartridges. All of you know
Yes.
how it is printed out and the like. So let's put it simply, we have 6 cartridges with quarks, 6 cartridges with leptons, and everything is elementary, and we can create anything, yes? That is, by causing quantum interactions, it's a program, energy, and all the rest. A program is entered, and in this volume, there can be instantly formed. Why? Particles are released, which are formed, which are set in their places by means of what? By means of information that is embedded specially in that place. And that's it. Information, energy, and a stock of particles. And we can get hot sandwiches. Excuse me, all kinds of things. There's no need to fry kebab. It will be exactly the same depending on the embedded information, and you can choose which one you like best. It is scanned, all the information is recorded, and everything will be recreated identically, at the exact same temperature at which it was recorded when it was scanned. Therefore, it's not that complicated.
And why to take elementary particles to refill these cartridges? Yes.
It can be anything. Again, in just the same way we can decompose information into components of these particles, and there are... Again, we proceed from physics, those very protons. Let's not go too deep, okay? Some particles can exist for a very, very long time, almost up to infinity. Some live less, but they can live for a very long time as well. Under certain conditions, they can also be of long-term storage, so to say. Therefore, one refill of a cartridge, depending on its volume, can be enough for a person for his entire life. Let's say a small volume cartridge relative to the current understanding. Why? Because there will be a lot of matter, which, by the way, will not have a certain weight because the weight is formed already as a result of what is acquired or what is reproduced, correct? You say where to take it? From that very garbage, from those very waste materials. There is, for example, it's impossible to do it, I tell you right away, in one microwave oven, because you would need another microwave oven that could refill the cartridges. I mean...
To recycle all of this.
Absolutely right. There are slightly different conditions for disassembling, but that very garbage can be recycled quite easily. Well, all sorts of things. Why did we say in the previous video that garbage will be very valuable? Why is it so that the first thing we're going to do is precisely to reevaluate values? We will no longer value gold, but we will value the waste that civilization has left to us. Why? Because there's a lot of necessary raw materials out there.
Garbage is more expensive than gold.
Of course, just look today. For example, those very molecules of plastic.
Microplastic.
Yes, microplastic. They are found everywhere around. And this means that it's already a trouble, it's already in humans, in the body. There are a lot of it in marine animals, everywhere. But this is the most valuable material, and it's very easy to extract it. In it, by the way, in plastic, there's a lot of everything, practically everything that we need. So even this kind of microparticles is of huge value.
What environmental issues it solves?
All of them.
They'll finally clean up the garbage continent in the Pacific Ocean.
Again, it solves all the issues of ecology, absolutely all of them. Why? Because any garbage becomes very valuable. Again, if we consider, for example, nuclear power plants operate nowadays, we have a lot of nuclear missiles. It is so, isn't it? After all, it is dangerous. As of today, this radiation...
Nuclear waste, too.
Nuclear waste. This is dangerous, it pollutes, it contaminates. Guys, it's so valuable, it's an energetically valuable product that will be very, very expensive, especially at first, while still, if everything goes right, if the creative society really develops, and if we reach the necessary stage, that what we are talking about now as science fiction, and what sounds like science fiction, it can actually develop very quickly, and we can have such opportunities rather quickly. The only thing is that we're passing from a consumerist to a creative format, and for a while we'll have both a monetary unit and market relations. It's natural. This cannot be removed at once. This process of adaptation will take some time, and if market relations are still active by then, and there is such a concept as a monetary unit, then of course everything will be extremely expensive, especially at first. Well, I mean precisely refills of these cartridges. Everything else, you know, is like The first iPhone, when we take it, is expensive. And when new ones appear, it's becoming cheaper and cheaper. Technology doesn't stand still, everything develops very quickly. And this is a very fast-paced industry. It's enough to understand the principles, to understand. It's enough to create the conditions for people to use it, and everything will start. IT will start developing very, very fast.
Will there be factories in the future, for example?
Of course not. They're not needed. This is ridiculous. At the first stage, of course, there will still be factories and many other things. That's why I say it's extremely difficult to create macro objects even if you know how to manipulate particles. Why? Again, it depends on energy. I repeat once again, meaning on a large scale, having a small amount of energy, it's extremely difficult to create conditions that would allow us to manipulate these particles. For example, it's difficult to create a house or some huge object. But as for simple ones, let's say, starting from a fur coat, slippers and food, from elementary things, I mean, it's all easy. As for a car, creating spare parts is simple. But a car itself is a little more complicated as it occupies a certain space. However, between the second and third stages, it will already be absolutely natural and it will be created outside the conditions of a microwave oven, as we said. Why? Because, let's fantasize, because in just the same way we can perform manipulations, let's say, in space, regardless of volume, again, provided there is an opportunity to access a greater or stronger energy. Why? Because what difference does it make if we create the same conditions in a huge volume? We don't need to save it all anymore. We don't need to create certain conditions in a certain closed box like a microwave oven. Why? It's easier to create there, but we can create such conditions of a room-size volume, for example, meaning the things which fit in a room, a container, to put it simply. So basically, we will be able to take out anything that fits in the container, yet we won't be able to take out anything greater. Again, the larger the volume is, the greater the energy consumption is. Like I say, in terms of energy volume and consumption, at the initial stages, it is much simpler to assemble car parts in small microwave devices or in slightly larger microwave devices, and then to assemble a car from the parts, then to produce it in something like a container. But some things may be produced in a container as well, something valuable and important, let's say. Why? Again, as long as there is economy, I mean, as long as there is a market economy, as long as there are monetary relations, all this is certainly a restrictive factor. But when it's already the second or the third stage, there is clearly no money there. Energies are already completely different. This is already exploration and creation of huge objects in space. That is why everything depends again on energy. That's not science fiction, it's all real. Many people will start having a misunderstanding. Guys, let's imagine, let's say, a spacecraft that can fly from one arm of the galaxy to another or to the other edge of our galaxy. Yes, it has to be large, it has to be quite heavy and very complex in today's understanding. However, again, the whole spacecraft will consist of what? Even speaking the language of modern physics, it will merely consist of those very 6 quarks and 6 leptons. Isn't that so, friends? What's the difference? And the most interesting thing is that no matter what the volume is, even starting from repair of an organ or creation of a dental implant, for example, which can be inserted and it is created in a little box, up to a huge spaceship or a huge skyscraper, all this will be produced within fractions of a second. Why? Because it is created almost instantaneously.
The value of human time, right?
Not the value of time. These are physical conditions. I mean, it will be impossible to create it like printing on a 3D printer. It is created from the inside to the outside.
Instantaneously.
Yes, here we create everything external, while there it is instantaneously created from the inside to the outside. And in this case, the growing interactions form it all. So I went ahead and told you some principles a little bit. It's a fantasy, so do not pay attention. It's not worth paying attention to this. Maybe there will be actually other laws of physics and physical principles. Who knows, right?
We would also like to fantasize more about the world without money, because now, with such a consumerist consciousness, it is very difficult to understand how it will really be. For instance, there is a person with a big house of 1,500 to 2,000 square meters, and so tomorrow he wakes up in a world without money. How will he hire and pay those very guards? How will he hire household staff?
Yet why would he need guards? A simple question, right? Why would he need guards? And when there is such a world, why would he need household staff? Pardon me, development of artificial intelligence, creation of robots which... What for? Is it really necessary for him that strangers come and clean? After all, excuse me, those very robots and everything else can do that as well. Why does he need guards if, in the creative society, it will be impossible to commit crimes? Why? Because with the development of the creative society, certain technologies will also develop. We already mentioned, such as the eye of God. Thus, a person will not be able to commit crime in a way that no one would know about that. When you know that punishment is inevitable, there is no point in committing crime. That's one thing. Secondly, why would you commit crime if it doesn't give you any profit? Because you have everything anyway. What for? For the sake of crime? Hence, this person is already inclined to what? To crime. Hence, he is insane. He's not normal. This should certainly be revealed. It will be at the later stages. At initial stages, it is clear that we won't be able to do that technologically, but in any case, any criminal will immediately be found, wherever he hides. What's the point? What are guards for? Whom to guard against? And what will he steal? A simple question. Imagine that you have two microwave devices at home. We have money in use, for example, all around. That is, there is a monetary unit, an exchange. You put this $100 bill into one device,
And take it out.
right, you immediately read the matrix from it and load it into the other device. And from these particles, you can create as many bills as you want for yourself, making changes even in numbers. I mean, this is elementary. You can actually make changes. Who will distinguish them? Tell me, what kind of a monetary unit will that be? Will it be virtual? Meaning like bitcoins nowadays, or the money people are storing, they say, there's money in my account. Yet in the account there are figures. It's all virtual, there is no money. There is a figure of some kind. Again, it's the same as with elementary particles. People have agreed among themselves that you have money. In fact, you have nothing. You have a figure, you have a code. And some figures are allegedly stored in a bank, but are they actually there? On the one hand, there is money, you can exchange it and get a piece of paper.
It is air, right?
Right, in my understanding, money is when you hold it in your hand. But when you have nothing to hold in your hands, it means you have nothing.
I agree with you.
Hardware fails, excuse me, a solar flare, and there's nothing. Yet, as long as you have it in your hands, it's worth something. But even what you hold in your hands can be copied in any quantity. So, what money?
Well, yes.
And what do you need it for? What will you buy with it? Food? You have it. What's next? Clothing? You have it. Some entertainment? Well, you can make and create all this in any huge quantity, then what? Value of money disappears. That's the point.
Yes, and in fact, new goals for life emerge. This is not hoarding,
Of course.
not in order to boast. It's just that consumerist mentality is set up in a standard way to sort of hoard
Absolutely right.
in order to be better than someone else.
That's right. Nowadays, we are being coerced, indeed.
Coerced,
A
yes.
severe manipulation over our consciousness is going on. Friends, it is really so. Non-stop ads, non-stop comparison. We are constantly being told something. This is better. That is worse. You're satisfied with your 5th iPhone. No, you need the 12th. What 5th? You're a cool guy. How is that? You're backward with the 5th one. Why do you need the 12th if you don't use those features? A simple question.
Status in society.
Status in society, right. And this showing off. There is such an expression. Pardon my slang, but there is no other way to describe it. This showing off actually rules the modern world because we have to conform to some patterns imposed on us. Then we kind of swagger or exalt ourselves among people, having a better car or something else. Well, it's all... However, when it all loses value, then it's the quality and usability of the product that begins to dictate, you understand? So, You don't need 100 fur coats anymore. Why would you need 100 fur coats? What for? If you can take what you need at any time, right?
Right.
You don't even need it for the summer. You don't need a closet to store clothes. You don't need to wash them. A simple point. After all, it's all particles.
Recycle, yes.
Of course.
Fill the cartridges, yes.
Of course. I'll put it this way. Dirty clothes are much more valuable than clean ones.
That's right. There is different...
Of course. If you ate a hamburger sloppily and, pardon me, make yourself dirty, these are also extra particles during clothes recycling, isn't it so? Now you can not only create or recreate your sweater, but also some mittens. It's a joke, of course, but these are real things.
Igor Mikhailovich, what will determine the status of a human in the creative society?
Humanness. I'll go back a little, excuse me, to our conversation about those very factories and everything else. After all, no highly developed civilization has any factories. But nevertheless, they have enormous resources. If we even go back a little bit, well, let's say to the time of Atlantis here, what do we see today? They're megaliths that are technically processed, moreover processed at a level that we are incapable of today, meaning the remnants of that ancient civilization. After all, the artifacts are extremely complex, which are extremely hard to restore today, and it's not clear, yet we hardly see any factories or anything else. Why? A simple question. Right? It's because the first level gives tremendous opportunities, although they didn't reach it. They advanced technologically, but they didn't reach that very first level because power was preserved and thus they remained uncivilized. Well, may I tell a joke? Is that okay? It's precisely about us, Earthlings. Aliens decided to register highly developed civilizations, intelligent, highly developed civilizations, on the list of the global community. So they came across the Earth. Humans have existed for a long time, they have already developed technologically. That's it. They are already on the list of intelligent beings. So in order to take us to a new stage of the global or universal community, they sent ambassadors. Aliens arrived here and began to interrogate us, Earthlings, about our life, how it is organized, whether we have solved all our problems, and how intelligent we were technologically. They saw, yes, from the point of view of technology, we are well developed and the like. They asked us, why do you have famine? Why haven't you solved this problem? Earthlings answered, you see, we don't have enough money. Aliens said, wait, what does it mean, money? What is money? Well, money is such an exchange unit. We create things and we sell things. Aliens said, by selling you mean that you exchange it for this money, right? Earthlings replied, yes. For example, we create something, exchange it for money, and then pass it over. That's what is not enough. Aliens said, where do you take this money? What do you mean where? We print it ourselves. So you printed yourselves and still don't have enough, yes? Aliens removed us from the list of intelligent beings and flew away.
Yes. From the sidelines, it is really an absurd society.
It's so ridiculous and absurd, yes.
Yes.
But that's how it is, unfortunately.
Yes, today we touched on the fact that the most important thing is human life and that it must be protected. And such massive developments for the exploration of space are going on today. Among other things, they promise that in 2024 it will be possible to safely send living people along with a crew, not just robots as it is planned, both to the Moon and to Mars in 2022. While in 2024 it will already be possible to send people anywhere in space. And sort of...
Anywhere in space, how is that?
It means to the Moon and to Mars.
But it's not anywhere in space, in fact.
Right. Today, it is considered to be a great achievement because they want...
But what for?
Indeed, what for? For colonizing Mars, for settling people there so that they...
What for?
So that people can escape there when difficult times come on Earth. So, for example...
To Mars?
Yes, to Mars. And they promise that by 2050, 1 million people will be resettled there.
1 million people on Mars by 2050?
On Mars.
I have a simple question. I don't even have a question.
Does it make sense to colonize planets?
Excuse me, I understand if it's from a scientific viewpoint or something else. I know how this topic has been hyped up today. It seems that everyone in the world has heard about the topic of flying to Mars. Maybe there are a couple of people who haven't heard, but it seems to me everyone has. It is so popular, it is being spread and praised so much. Guys, where is your common sense? A simple question. Excuse me, a dead planet. It is dead. It doesn't have any purpose or value. We, people with a civilization, send our fellow citizens there for a one-way trip. After all, we don't have enough energy to bring them back. We are capable of sending them there so that they end their existence in a tin can or, excuse me, like Diogenes in a barrel. Is that normal? And we make some kind of a great, I don't know, the greatest achievement of our time out of this. By 2050, when there may be a disaster here, we will have sent 1 million people there. And that 1 million people will die a little later or sooner than we die here, if we do nothing.
Sooner.
Is that salvation of humankind? What for? Sending to a dead? Honestly, well, I understand when it is from a scientific point of view. Send a robot there, let it take a sample and tell you, photograph everything, and transmit the data to Earth if it is interesting to you. But to send people on a suicide mission, I understand those people who want to. Why? Because they want to be heroes, they want to be talked about. Just imagine, they're willing to sacrifice their lives so that we talk about them. Guys, how does that fit to any kind of, I don't know, reasonableness? The aliens were actually wrong in removing us from the list for printing money. We should be removed precisely for this nonsense when we do not value human life. When we push people to death for the sake of them being sort of the first ones. In the same way, we have mountains. And they might as well, if they please, go to the mountains, put their barrel somewhere on the highest mountain and live there. Here we can at least bring them down somehow if there is an emergency.
Right, at least there is an atmosphere.
And this is cheaper. You know, there isn't much of an atmosphere on a high mountain, but on Mars there's no atmosphere at all. This is silly, this is... You know, someone will just make a good money on the sly, create a huge advertisement for himself, and again will scam humanity. Isn't that so?
A big scam.
This is merely a big stupid scam. I believe it will require dozens of billions of funds. And how many mass media are involved? How many people are involved? How much human attention is invested there? This is something that will do us as humanity absolutely no good. But imagine if we invest these means, this cost of mass media, money, our attention and everything else in the creative society, in building the creative society, and in what we talked about, that a human being will have everything. And most importantly, he will have not only health, not only material provision, he will have an opportunity to live in joy and safety. Why? Because in the creative society this is guaranteed, both the issue of safety and everything else. Isn't that right? So what is better? I think these funds would be more than enough, really, and that resource. Now we are talking about this, which means we've heard about it from mass media and from far more than one source, right? Moreover, as a rule, these are mainstream or news media and all the rest. Mass media will not talk about the creative society. That's 100%. At least not for a while, but when we gain a certain mass, and a critical moment comes, when people begin to find out, and when the rest realize that building the creative society is inevitable because that's what all people want, then they will pick it up. I mean, only then. But until then, everything will go as it went, that is, according to the consumerist format. Why? Because the media are controlled, they belong to someone, although it is strange, people work there, and intelligent people at that. If you have understood that, is it hard to convey it to others? Again, they make fools of us as humanity. They manipulate us. They tease us and tell us that heroes, representatives of humanity, will fly to Mars. I think that many people who suffer from a lack of self-fulfillment but nevertheless have a hypertrophied megalomania, who crave such worldwide attention, immediately will say, yes, we want, we are heroes. And you know, I would actually register such people in a psychiatric clinic so that psychiatrists would watch after them. It's wrong when a person is ready to go to his death in a deliberately false project that will do nothing good to humanity. It's ridiculous just for people to talk about him. I'm sorry, doesn't that remind you of anything? It's like maniacs who do outrageous things and terrorists who blow themselves up. What for? For people to talk about them. But that's not normal. The same situation is with self-sacrifice. I understand when it's done for people, it's absolutely for someone else's life. That's understandable. While here, it's either deceived or sick people. It may be that deceived people have succumbed to this trend, thinking that they sacrifice their lives for people. There's an excuse here. It is normal. This is if they don't realize that it's a scam and they have a one-way trip. In general, it's kind of unpleasant, frankly speaking. There are so many such projects, and we as humanity are deceived and manipulated so much, to put it mildly.
Yes, and how much money is spent on this? Trillions.
Huge amounts, enormous amounts of money.
Yes.
Just look, even one useless Martian program with these funds could fully compensate, let's say, for the development of the creative society. And what is better? The future life of all of us, everyone and our children, well, versus a simply useless, well, but it's emotional, you know. A flight to Mars is the same as an international competition like the Olympics, when there's a lot of emotions and worries and everyone talks about this.
It's a pity that people are deceived, although, in fact, in the creative society, they could be much more useful to society.
Of course.
And not only would the person himself be happy, but he would also bring happiness to other people.
Of course. That's the point of the creative society. If here we kind of brag to one another and try to appear higher than we are, and there is a struggle for who is higher, and the struggle is actually going on for who will cheat whom and who will take from whom, meaning a strong will take from a weak and so on, a cunning one from a stupid. Then in the creative society, everything is just the opposite. How much you have done for people, this is what will be valued. Your talents, your creativity should, on the contrary, bring joy and benefits to people. And people will be talking precisely about those who have done more. I mean, heroes change. From abstract heroes, if we take our history, we actually have a history of murders and violence. Yes, a history of conquest. What does our history tell us about? The entire history of humankind is built on
domination, where someone over someone else,
on self-destruction, on someone,
yes, the entire civilization,
destroying someone else, while the creative history is built precisely on development, on new discoveries. Those are completely different aspects. That's the difference, and it is huge.
In the previous videos, we also mentioned the technologies of additional consciousness, that those skills that a person will acquire will be,
of course,
available to all people.
Surely, of course.
That is, every person can integrate these skills.
Again, let's approach this reasonably. Many people will say, artificial consciousness. We should cope with our own consciousness first. Of course, in the first place, we should cope with our own consciousness. However, artificial consciousness may dominate over personality in the same way as our consciousness does. But there is, excuse me, such a watch like a chamomile, so you can visually see the indicator has lit up that something is wrong. You press the button and that's it. Yes, you immediately, kind of the internet was turned off in the head, but the acquired skill still remains because it is formed in our neurons. That's the skill which we acquire thanks to artificial consciousness. And many understandings remain here while we sort of shrank. I mean, it can be easily turned off, but it also gives us an understanding. Again, that consciousness is not us. Even our consciousness is not us. It has been said from time immemorial that there is both the devil and an angel in a human. And that which belongs to the mortal, to the devil, this entire skill is exactly consciousness, while that which we feel, the one who observes consciousness and who accepts, as they say, conscience, I knew that I was doing wrong. If you knew, why did you do that? A simple question. Because consciousness is stronger. Thus, it makes a person do stupid things. Fight for selfishness, fight for pridefulness, fly to that very Mars, and in general, even contrive this scam. A person who would live, as they say, from the heart, from the soul, he wouldn't do that. It is only consciousness that creates these combinations, these deceptions, all the fraudulent projects and everything else. When you understand and you know how consciousness works, you will keep an eye on your own one and will not accept and will not implement many things, so the benefit is huge. But what is the most important benefit? Clearly, instantaneous acquisition of a skill. That is, if you don't know how to cook borscht, 2 minutes and you already know how to cook it, moreover in different combinations from the best master chefs. Next, walking a tightrope. Can you walk a tightrope? I can when it's lying on the ground. If it is higher, it's quite hard. Well, you can walk it like any athlete or a professional, like a tightrope walker, who's been doing it all his life because that's his body control skill. Again, overcoming fear is his skill. He already knows how to do that, so why would you learn it? And most importantly, why spend so many years teaching children, robbing them of their free time, life and creativity, teaching them to write and everything else? It's clear a child may not undergo connection to additional skills until the age of 5, but after this period of 5 to 6 years old, this is when these skills may already be turned on freely, which he will acquire very quickly. And he will see what he likes, where to grow, where to develop, and around the age of 12 or 14, a person should already define his desires and aspirations, what science, what field or something else he prefers. And then he also develops his skills.
Great.
Acquiring the skills which all of humanity has had, which we have. And plus, you can develop it further and you'll work on that skill for people. Develop it further. For instance, let's take sports. They say people will not work, they will live for themselves. For example, a person doesn't want to go to work, he wants to exercise on a chinning bar, but he's developing a skill. Not only that he use of this chinning bar for various complex techniques and the like, he will even begin to improve the chinning bar so that it is more comfortable, but this is actually a skill.
Benefit.
Which we can get instantaneously. He has spent his life achieving a result, while we will get it right away. This is really so. Artificial consciousness or additional consciousness, yes. It has been and is being exploited by all normal civilizations, and it cannot but be exploited. We exploit it too, but this is, excuse me, the most primitive level. What you have now, connected to the internet, is nothing more than additional consciousness, isn't it so? It is.
Yes.
It is not integrated with your consciousness. That's why you need what? You need energy, primitive energy. So do you see what we have touched upon? The first thing I touched upon, you need energy to make it work and turn it on. Having energy, we can make it all work. That's where it all comes from. Well, everything else is digits, all these are particles, all this is information, all these are waves. This is not complicated at all. But it's exactly the same in this case.
And what about communication with other people? After all, there are so many languages in the world today. Will this technology of additional consciousness help us in the communication aspect?
Of course, 100%. And the most interesting thing is that languages will disappear very quickly.
Completely altogether.
It will remain as a cultural heritage, there will remain an understanding of all this, but it will disappear because it is unnecessary. One language will be developed. Which one, humankind will decide it on their own. But it will be one and much more comprehensive than now, not a simpler but a more complicated one.
Well, yes, now consciousness tends to simplify everything,
Yes.
including languages.
Consciousness tries to simplify everything, especially languages and all the rest. Well, technologization is going on. And upheavals, while there will be an expansion of language. But it will be one, and the most interesting thing is that with those helpers, you don't have to learn and to waste time. All this is instantaneous, but kids will still learn. Up to 5 years old, of course.
Igor Mikhailovich, today you also talked about the technology of the Eye of God, and in the video Angels Don't Fall, you spoke about the all-seeing Eye of God, about this technology. Yet, how can this technology serve in a positive way, that is, in the creative society? And what is the difference between using it in a consumerist and in a creative format of society?
Let's look at it. At this technology, so to say, in the consumerist format of use, what will it give? It will give advantages to the one who will have it. Why? Because the advantage immediately comes from the perspective. Again, in a consumerist format, these are military men, this is intelligence and everything else, with the aim of intelligence, information and the like, and total surveillance of everyone and everything. What does this I have got technology allow? To see every person, no matter where he is. It's impossible to protect yourself from this, it's impossible to shield oneself. So people can be found everywhere. Imagine, for instance, a submarine, no matter how you hide in it. What is the purpose of a submarine? To approach someone unnoticeably, say your rival, or from a reconnaissance perspective. I mean, why? Because wherever a person is, he is visible. So let's imagine, for instance, submarines. The purpose of a submarine is to stealthily approach the shores of a conventional enemy and to bring nuclear weapons. In other words, this is actually a terrible thing nowadays, to sneak up unnoticed and be able to destroy people in another territory. Question: with the eye of God technology, is this possible? It's impossible. What kind of submarine would sneak up stealthily? Direct countermeasures. There's a front line, for example. But again, it can be seen who is where, again.
You mean precisely people can be seen, right?
Of course, it can be seen where all the people are, again. Today, people brag. Some brag that they have the fastest missiles, that they will fly down and no one will be able to defend themselves. Others brag, partners, among themselves. Others brag that they have the biggest amount of nuclear weapons, that they don't even have to explode. If they throw them, there won't be room for life. And that sort of bragging, you know, like children in a sandbox, who has the biggest shovel, who has the coolest car. The same is here, without understanding simple things, that all this is against our lives, against us, ordinary people, and our children, but they allegedly want to protect us. So imagine with such a weapon, let's say, as the eye of God. It's possible to see everyone, who is where, and their emotional states. And that's where the second part comes in. That very Vajra. What does the Vajra give? The Vajra gives, first of all, a cessation of all arms races. It makes all weapons useless. Why? Because, let's imagine, let's say, there appears some L who sees everyone on his tablet, everyone in the military, everyone who launches fast missiles, and everyone who has a lot of nuclear missiles. With a push of a button, all the troops cease to exist at once. Is it possible to be at war with such a person? It's unrealistic when he sees everyone and can simply turn off life for either one person or a billion people with a push of a button. And this is not science fiction. This is absolute reality. And if we are talking with you now, and look, we talked with you once, and people were very interested in this, and then the second time, and now we are clinging to this for the third time, it means that someone is doing this somewhere. So it's a matter of maybe even a short period of time before somebody will possess it. The only question is who will possess it. It's good if it's responsible people, but what if not? Yet there may be a completely different balance of power, and the world may be rearranged even with these weapons. Let's say that very eye of God and that very Vajra. Why? Imagine a small country, but it has made this cutting-edge breakthrough, and it will be, as they say, the hegemon, that is, it will reign over everybody. Why? Because it's impossible to resist it. Okay, if it's good people, it means they will stand for peace and order in this world. And that's it. Wars have stopped because they are pointless. A small country can make the whole world lay down their arms. But if it falls into the hands of some mega-powerful state who wants to become a superpower and possess everybody, that is to build a new Atlantis, easily, and no one will be able to oppose it. Because everyone who wants to oppose it simply ceases to exist. Anyone who speaks from a position of force simply ceases to exist. So what is next? Those very fast missiles, someone has to launch them. Those very nuclear missiles, someone has to deliver them, launch them, and everything else. But if there are no people who can do that, then all this is mere junk, isn't it? That's why it's very scary, in fact.
It's a very dangerous tool.
On the one hand, it can guarantee security and stop all military conflicts. But on the other hand, it can simply become the king of the whole world. It all depends on whose hands it will be in. It is people's choice. There is justice here too, and this should be approached honestly too. Why? It is always a human choice that decides the fate of humanity's future. This is true. But it is right when humanity decides its own destiny. In this case, if we are talking specifically about this technology, it cannot belong to everyone, because it exclusively has to be in someone's hands. It will be in someone's hands, and there is no escaping it for us. The question is, in whose hands? Here, it is extremely difficult to influence this. But let's look not from the bad side, but from the good side. In the creative society, the presence of that very eye of God, what does it give? After all, it gives an opportunity to see the drastic shifts that occur in the neural group of the brain of a person himself, that is, critical situations, stresses, and all the rest. For example, a person gets sick, but doesn't realize it yet, and an ambulance is already on its way to him.
Great.
It's a human life.
The value of it, yes.
Of course. This is at the first stages, when a person really has an opportunity to possess the technology of improving his body health, prognosis, of illness and everything else, then he doesn't need an ambulance. While at the first stages of the creative society development, this is necessary, of course. And I think these technologies that we're talking about now, about Vajra and this one, they're already being developed somewhere. Because technically it is possible to do this even with our energy, so it's not a big deal. But we take the good side. An ill person gets help, God forbid there's an earthquake. A lot of people are trapped under the rubble while here they are visible. It can really be seen where there are alive people and where help is needed at the first place. Why? Because it's impossible to shield anything. Is it a plus? It is. And now one more, the most important point, in my opinion, the most important. How many millions of people disappear every year without a trace?
I know only one country's statistics about children. In the United States, more than 420,000 children disappeared in 2018. That's only children in one country.
420,000 in just one country. And it's not the largest country in the world. We have China, we have India, where there are a lot of people, and we have the rest of the world, where billions of people live as well.
So it's millions of people.
It's millions of people who disappear without a trace every year. So, with this technology of the eye of God, not a single person will disappear. It's just impossible. Disappeared without a trace. And it's also very important. Why? Because it just stops. There will be no crime. This technology eliminates. We don't need video cameras or anything else. Just imagine, a person has stolen a car. Where did he go? You can see who stole it. Because in order to find him, it shows down to the centimeter where he is, so it really can be seen at any time who drove your car, or who committed any crime, no matter where it was committed. And a person cannot hide because all this is online. All this is recorded at once, plus you can store the data for a long time. It's a machine, it's a technology. It is, excuse me, it's like the track of a car. You record where it is and where it's going. And you can watch the whole world like that. Even if it happened a month ago, it doesn't matter. You look at who was there and who did it. So,
this element of invisibility disappears. After all, when you are invisible,
yes,
you can do
whatever you want
because you won't get punished. While when you are already in the public eye, then of course, this brings to mind the legend that Plato described in his work, The Republic, about the ring of Gyges. An ordinary shepherd found in a cave a ring of gold on a dead man, and he realized that it made him invisible. And putting this ring on, he just started doing very bad things. He seduced the queen, killed the king with her help, and became the king himself.
Became the king.
Yes, he became the king. And the moral is that basically all human qualities should be instilled, first of all, by society itself, so that there wouldn't be any such intentions or thoughts as nowadays. Let us say, because of patterns, a person immediately tries to derive some kind of benefit for himself.
Benefit.
Benefit, yes.
Of course.
Meaning either profit or power.
100%. It's a consumerist format. It forms it all.
Consumerist.
Therefore, we should honestly admit that L lives in each of us. Give him conditions and he will manifest himself.
Yes.
This is why, when building the creative society, it is extremely important to be absolutely honest,
Transparent.
to understand, and to create such conditions in which this L will never manifest in anyone, even to the slightest extent. Otherwise, everyone will strive for power.
For power, yes.
And that's why this technology, that very Vajra, is terrible, because Vajra precisely gives invisibility. The most interesting thing is that Vajra is useless without the eye of God. Many people will come up with a question, how?
How are they interconnected, right?
Because they are interconnected. The eye of God actually shows an object or objects and where they are. Whereas Vajra is like a supplement. That's why it was said that it consists of two components and so on. That's the point of its several components, so to say. Vajra can merely destroy, let's say, dangerous objects or undesirable objects and the like. But an object becomes visible exactly because the eye of God targets it and shows it. Without the eye of God, I would compare it to the following. Imagine an archer who shoots excellently, he doesn't miss the target, such a Robin Hood. Well, here, if we deprive him of eyesight and hearing, or close them and twist him in space a little bit, and let him now hit the target, what will he hit? To shoot into the darkness? If he doesn't see and doesn't know, no matter how well he shoots, no matter how effectively he shoots, if he doesn't see the target, everything is pointless, therefore.
Then it turns out that in such a society, the need in militarized structures is totally eliminated. Thus, a tremendous human resource is released.
Yes, certainly. Of course, it's a tremendous number of people who can contribute to the creative society development, to space explorations and so on. But again, let's speak honestly, who goes to the military? These are adrenaline lovers, people who are inclined to risk or something else, meaning peaceful life may be boring for them. Yet, pardon me, in the creative society, when it is developing, new opportunities really open up. This is exactly for such people, where they work for the entire humanity and don't serve some else specifically, fulfilling his will and killing innocent people. They tell such a military man they're guilty because they're enemies. That's it, you don't need to think more. You've been told that a person is an enemy, you go and kill him. And if he kills you, he says, oh, what would he kill me for? It's a joke, but it is true. Well, in this case, military men will be able to serve for the entire humanity. Is that bad, friends? When it is done not for someone's selfish interest and not for someone's profits, but for all people's life, in order to make it more beautiful, in order to colonize one more planet, for people to be able to move there, and again, to create billions of people on the new planet. So these pioneers will certainly be the same people who are at the front line, at the front, and so on, even now, and who have to protect their territories. They're heroes. The heroes of today are not those who attack to seize what belongs to others, but those who protect their own.
Igor Mikhailovich, you've just said about the two components and so on. What is the structure of Vajra?
Tanya, let's talk later. Sorry, there's nothing complicated. It's really possible, and no matter how much we want it, this is just a matter of technological development.
Oh, goodness.
Yes. Be careful with women,
And women should be more careful too.
And women should be more careful as well.
Igor Mikhailovich, in the beginning of this video, you've said that in the creative society, even if we can use those developments which already exist today, not to mention those which are basically yet to be developed, then, in principle, humanity will take a new turn.
I got your thought. Of course. After all, let's honestly say that a lot of breakthrough technologies were shut down. Why? Because it's not beneficial for corporations or someone else. Let's simply take a look. God knows when it was said that we had already created medications or kind of a toothpaste which totally eliminates tooth decay, meaning there would be no tooth decay if you use this medication. Why and where do such technologies vanish if they have already been created and announced and then they disappear? What turnover, so to say, is in that very sphere of dental care? I mean, not only dentistry, but also a great number of those who create the equipment, those who make medications and all the rest. It's huge. And pharmacology is involved there because drugs are needed and all the rest. Yet imagine, people stopped having tooth decay. Their teeth stopped aching. I understand there can be a tooth injury or a need to smooth a tooth defect. Let's put it that way, there will remain one clinic out of hundreds of dentists' offices. This is a mass of people without a job. These are huge billions annual losses, right? For us, for people, it's kind of beneficial. And now let's take a look. How many people will be without jobs? If this technology is introduced, that is, let's approach it from a different angle in the consumerist format, where will they find themselves? Do their children have to starve or what? I don't mention those who make most of the money on that. I'm talking about those who are involved in this sphere. Or imagine vision correction, which is easy. And that's it, neither glasses nor eye drops are needed, nothing, that's it. This has actually existed for a long time. But to what extent is this not beneficial? What about lenses? What about glasses and all the rest?
A factory that produces all this.
Of course.
Workplaces.
Of course. It's a multi-million industry, so this concerns everything, whatever we take. Let's take those very energy generators. Nowadays, there are magnetic ones, they are already being produced and the like with efficiency greater than 1. Well, not that efficiency and not that energy, which we discussed in the previous video, but already at least something. And indeed, generators capable of producing in kilowatts and all the good, they are already being implemented. This is not science fiction anymore. If a couple of years ago they still used to say science fiction and there cannot be a fuel-free generator, it's unrealistic. As of today, this is absolute reality. But then again, they don't sell it, they lease it, and people pay for that energy they produce. But the very fact that they exist has already destroyed the myth. While in actual fact, how many of such fuel-free generators were created? Plenty. However, many ended up very badly. And far from all were allowed to be developed, such as Searles and many others. They were simply prohibited. Why? And here on the one hand, this is extremely unprofitable for the magnates, while on the other hand, this is a huge number of people who would be simply jobless due to implementation of this technology, right?
We don't have to go far. A light bulb, which is in every house.
Yes.
After all, they were reducing its lifetime hours and purpose, meaning...
Wait, if a bulb works 100,000 hours...
Yes.
Or it works 1,000 hours. There is a difference. After all, you bought a bulb and you don't buy it anymore. And it's still a limited number of those bulbs which are needed. We made them in a year, and that's it. You see? So what, should we shut the factory down, lay people off? While now, every year we change bulbs. Everybody works, everybody's pleased.
The same goes for batteries. Also, if one battery has 1 ampere for 1 hour of work, then there can be created batteries that will work infinitely.
That's not a battery anymore, those are already generators. Is it possible? Yes, it is. Was it made? Yes, it was. After all, we don't say that this didn't happen. It did. And these developments, imagine such batteries which are put in that very Tesla car. And that's it, and they don't need to be charged. It will keep running infinitely. Until it gets broken, everything gets broken and the like. But is it beneficial?
Not for manufacturers, right?
Manufacturers and people who work there. Let's look at people too, after all. Imagine that a plant is closed because it is not needed. And there are dozens of thousands of people.
Oh, yes.
And behind them there are dozens of thousands of families. And dozens of thousands of children. Where should they go? In the modern consumerist format, when they enter the labor market, when factories are shut down due to implementation of something, And now look at the difficulty here. In the creative society, it is beautiful, it is wonderful, it won't be a problem, because all this is for people.
Now we perceive in a different way your words about why it is so important to build and not to destroy like the modern format does. To build something
Of
new
course,
right away.
immediate destruction is just inadmissible when we haven't decided about the new. Because if we start destroying, right away, thoughtlessly, even introduce these technologies, we will be actually the ones who will end up without a bite to eat, so everything should be in the right way. After all, it's necessary to ponder and estimate. There's plenty, a mass of technologies allowing to make life really beautiful, that which we have been talking about with you today, that these particles can be manipulated because it's not difficult. These are absolutely simple things, in fact. But for us to approach this, it is necessary to change the society. It is necessary to change the attitude towards each other. A lot of things need to be changed. All this should go smoothly. That's a natural process. It doesn't mean that it will take hundreds of years or decades. This is a very fast process, actually. Yet it should go according to the plan and with a balanced approach, from the simple to the complex, so that all the 8 foundations of the creative society are taken into account. And the most important thing is for us, first and foremost, to learn, to respect each other, and to love each other. Isn't that right? And everything will be possible then, both the creative society and that which we've been discussing today. All this is easy and simple. There's no science fiction here at all.
Yes, indeed. There are these technologies.
There's everything.
It's just unfortunately...
You know what's not there? The creative society. And we should work on that.
Should work.
So friends, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you too.
Thank you so much, Igor Mikhailovich.
Thank you very much.
Let's simply love each other and build a creative society, if we need it. Thank you for being with us.